Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Sunday Tea with me, your host, Danielle Lee. Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. I would just like to reiterate that these episodes are created for people who are on their healing journey. And I speak about things that you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. And that's in the hope that I can bring awareness to any old patterns, behaviors, and help you to release past traumas that might be keeping you stuck. So it's my intention that when these messages find you, that they will help you along that journey and allow you to grow in the way that you desire. Have you ever fallen for somebody who has left you feeling confused? And when you first met this person, you both had great chemistry, you had mutual interests, everything that you would want in a person, they seemed to embody. And somewhere along the line, that dynamic shifts. And when you are coming from a wounded background and you haven't got a healthy vision of what love looks like, it's easy to fall into a trap and toxic cycles of love, which will cause us more harm than good. I know there are people out here who have a desire or an attraction for a person, and that desire isn't always reciprocated. But maybe there was a time or there was a point in time when this person did show an interest in you, and they may have distanced themselves from the dynamic or the situation that you were both in. It could be for a number of reasons. I know there are people out here who prey on others' vulnerabilities and weaknesses when it comes to love and emotions. And people who do that I believe are also coming from a wounded place. It's a way to feed their ego. It's a way to boost them and their low self-esteem. It's a way to make them feel validated and important as individuals. And I'm not saying this to excuse that behavior. I don't condone it for a single minute. But we are essentially feeding off of each other's wounds. So when do we recognize that we are in this cycle? And if we do recognize that we're in this cycle, why are we putting ourselves in a situation where we're continuing to believe or hope that things are going to turn out the way we want them to? And the truth of the matter is that it's a fantasy. The person that you met likely started off love bombing you, showering you with affection and attention and saying and doing all the things you want to hear. And they have managed to find a way to keep you in, it's like entrapment. They've kept you stuck in this cycle. And now that you are in this cycle, you're like a puppet on a string where they can play you in a way that they want to, when they want to. And what I find really sad is that there are communities of people out here who are stuck in these cycles of delusion, in believing that they have a significant other that is going to one day come running back to them, and they're going to live this happy life that they constantly fantasize about. And I want to say that if the love you feel for somebody isn't reciprocated, if they haven't shown you any indication that they respect you, value your time, your energy, have any regard for your feelings, your well-being, if they're not calling to check up on you or to see how you are, the chances are it's a one-sided situation. The person that you believe you're in love with, and that person that you are building this fantasy around, if they are not reciprocating those feelings towards you, you should likely assume it's not something that's going to evolve into anything useful, healthy, or productive. So I think when you come from a wounded place, when you have attachment wounds and abandonment wounds, rejection wounds, we crave a type of love that can fill and heal those wounds. That type of love will never exist unless we heal those wounds. We will attract people that will continue to cut us and reopen those wounds and continue to make us bleed. Some people will keep you stuck in that cycle for their own selfish reasons. They could be in a relationship. They might have multiple relationships. They might just be keeping you there for when they need you, or just, you know, they like the idea that they have somebody waiting for them, somebody that they have no intention of actually ever being with. And when you're coming from a wounded place and you're craving love and you meet somebody who you feel can fulfill that need within you, it can easily turn into something that's very unhealthy, something that's borderline obsessive, and something that removes you from the reality of the situation. So when you meet somebody who, when you're coming from a wounded place, I've said this before, it's very easy to ignore red flags, and it's probably something you shouldn't do. But that desire to be loved is so strong that you want to overlook the red flags that you are seeing, because you are hoping that this situation is the real deal. This person is actually going to fulfill you in every way that you've ever desired. And the fact of the matter is that person cannot fulfill any desire within you. The only person who can fulfill those desires is you. So I think if you are in a situation where you're in love with somebody and it isn't being reciprocated, it's really important to use discernment in those situations. And I understand that can be really difficult when you're coming from a wounded place. And there are communities out here who will encourage those self-perpetuating toxic cycles of attachment. Think about all of that energy you're pouring into somebody that isn't showing you that same love in return. Think about all of the energy you're using thinking about this person, desiring this person, hoping that one day you're going to be together and live happily ever after. think realistically. Would somebody who wants to be in your life, would somebody who desires you and loves you shy away from letting you know that? Would somebody that you believe is your significant other, or there's a chance that one day you'll be together, will they really keep you wondering and guessing whether that will ever actually become a reality? If a person truly wants to be with you, there's nothing that will stop them from being with you. If a person truly loves you and desires you, they won't want to leave you alone for 2 days, 1 week, 5 months, 2 years. They're not going to leave you alone in a situation where there's no contact. Why would they leave you alone for that amount of time without ever giving you any indication that they want to be with you? Somebody that wants you is never ever going to leave you in a situation where you're wondering what their intentions are, where you're trying to decipher their words, their actions, their behaviors. They're not going to keep you guessing. Somebody who wants you will make it known. So this is where the confusion comes in for yourself, because you're unable to determine the reality of your situation. But if there is no evidence of this person wanting you in the way that you want them, you should assume that it's a very one-sided situation, and it's a situation that you have to begin to heal from. And if you are around a person who is keeping you deliberately stuck in a cycle like that, you have to find the strength to pull yourself away and see the situation for what it is. Nothing good will come from a situation that isn't reciprocal. And how about all of that energy you're focusing and pouring into this other person? How about you take all of that back and start pouring it into yourself? When you come from a wounded place, you are addicted to toxic relationships, toxic dynamics, toxic wounds from childhood, keeping you stuck in feelings of familiarity, rejection, abandonment, hurt, pain, abuse. If you are on your healing journey, you have to become aware of these patterns and cycles that you're repeating. And you have to use discernment when you are dealing with people who intentionally or unintentionally keep you stuck in those cycles. And once you build self-awareness and you can pull yourself away to the point where you can create distance and space between you and that person, just to allow you to think logically about the situation. Because when you're stuck in deep emotion and feelings, logic isn't something that easily exists. And it's only when you create that space and allow yourself to see the situation in its entirety and the reality of what it truly is, that you can determine the true nature of this situation. Think clearly. What evidence do you have that this situation is anything other than what it is proving to be? What evidence do you have that this fantasy that you're creating or that you are being led to create is anything other than a fantasy. What is your gut truly telling you about this situation that you are in? And you have to be aware of, people who play games. And sometimes people don't play games. Sometimes people are explicit in telling you that they don't want a relationship. They don't want what you want. But something inside you refuses to believe that that is true. And in order to remove yourself from these patterns and begin to heal from repeating them over and over again, you really need to learn to take situations for what they are. Don't try and decipher messages and people's actions and believe that it's something more than it actually is. If somebody isn't showing you or explicitly stating the nature and status of your relationship, then it's best to assume that it's not what you're imagining it to be. It's really difficult actually to speak about something like this because, feelings of love overpower everything. And if you're convinced that somebody loves you the way you love them, there's nothing that I can do to convince you otherwise. But as I said, if you are on your healing journey and you are wanting to break free of these types of cycles, the only way you can do that is by detaching yourself from that situation and thinking about it logically and just looking at the evidence that's presented to you. Don't be caught up by, the delusion or people out here who feed into your delusion, who encourage it and exploit your vulnerability. So I hope that moving forward, you can use discernment the next time you find yourself in a situation that might lead you to being caught up in another cycle like this. So you can recognize when a situation genuinely has potential or when it's something you need to walk away from. And as long as you're coming from a wounded place, there will always be people there to prey on your vulnerability. There will always be people out here who will prey on your weakness. And you're wasting valuable years of your life. Just pull back the energy, take it back, remain strong and pour it all into yourself. And when you make the decision to pour the energy into yourself and you begin to heal and you can see a clearer picture of the situation you are in, that's when you're going to see things through a new perspective and truly see the situation for what it is. You deserve to receive love that's reciprocal. You deserve to receive affection and attention. Don't waste 5, 10, 20 years of your life waiting for somebody that has no desire to be with you. Think about it. Life's too short. So please use discernment moving forward. And if you are coming from a wounded place, make healing your priority. So once you heal, you can attract that relationship that you dream about. The fact of the matter is, you're unlikely to attract that love that you crave when you're coming from a wounded place. And the only person that can heal your wounds and give you that love that you crave is yourself. So that's it for this episode. I hope it helps somebody to free themselves from those chains of entrapment and realize that you're worthy of real love. Don't fall victim to other people's games that they play. Don't fall victim to people who prey on you and your weaknesses and your vulnerability. Because the fact of the matter is, you're going to attract people who do that because they are also coming from a wounded place, and they are also vulnerable, and they are also weak. But what they do, they're just feeding off of you to make themselves feel valid. So that's all for today's episode. I will see you next week, Sunday, for episode 9 of Sunday Tea with me, your host, Danielle Lee. Take care and see you then. Bye.